Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 4 of the TakeProfitTrader 50K funded challenge. If you missed the previous 3 days, no worries, I got you covered. You'll find the link in the description to the TakeProfitTrader funded challenge playlist where all previous recordings are available. I'll also continue uploading the remaining trading days there throughout this journey. With that said, let's get started. Today is Thursday, June 4th, 2026, and the time is currently exactly 11 minutes past 5 p.m. Central European Summertime. And if we pull up our rhythmic windows like that, we can see that there is currently no data for today's session yet, obviously, since I did not take any positions so far. Now the same goes for the Take Profit Trader portal, obviously. So yeah, these are the results of Monday, results of Tuesday, and the results of Wednesday. And today, Thursday, we have nothing yet, but let's see if we can change that. So let me pull up the ATAS DOM in front of me and perform some DOM analysis and, observe the market dynamics to see if we can catch a few scalps here and there using nothing but pure order flow. So yeah, let's get to work. And we can see that we have the Take Profit Trader account selected. And we have also here a small summary of the account, the total balance. And let's see if we can catch a few ticks here and there. Now, we do see that there was somewhat of a push to the upside earlier, right? And at some point, price basically reached an equilibrium and now is basically, trading, within this year a volume profile based range from the looks of it. And we can see somewhat of the same over at the 30-year. Now, I do see a pressure point at the 200 level on the 10-year and somewhat of the same at the 100 price level over at the 30-year. Let's see if that presents us an, opportunity to short. If we look at the, most recent area, like sellers were definitely controlling the price. However, just as a potential breakout is likely, we have to keep in mind that a potential short-term, rotation to the upside is also a possibility. And why is that? Well, I explained that many times throughout almost every video, I believe. Now, if a seller started to accumulate, right, and basically, push the price all the way down here, now these areas are ideal, to get rid of their inventory, right? So if a big player has accumulated inventory here, he will most likely get rid of them here. Yes, a potential breakout may occur, but because the seller who started to sell here knows that, and if he notices that, yes, sellers are pumping new money into the market, right, to generate that potential breakout, then he will get rid of his contracts there. And at some point, sure, we can have that small rotation to the upside, and eventually, if that big seller got rid of all his contracts at the first time, right, then if those sellers here still are interested in generating a breakout, then it obviously still may occur. But we are basically looking at what is happening in the now before we get to that point. So it's good to think ahead. But yeah, and the same goes obviously for buyers, right? Let's say buyers are now accumulating here and, lift the offer all the way up here back to that volume profile breakout range here. The buyer who has accumulated, inventory here, knows there will be buyers here, right? So that will be an ideal area within the volume profile, right, to get rid of his contracts. And he may do that first passively, right? And, as soon as the buyers clear that level, he may take market orders to, get rid of his contracts faster. And obviously, those numbers will be printed here, right? So it may look like sellers are attacking, but it just can be one big player buyer who is getting rid of his inventory after he has accumulated here. So, yeah, let's see. Okay. I do see that the buyers are the aggressors currently over at the 10-year. Let's see how it reflects here. This could be an ideal area to take a short position like that. And if the price, triggers my position at 140, then that same level could act as somewhat of a protection point if that same selling pressure tends to continue, right? If there is, let's say, the buyer, who is accumulating here at the edge around this year level, then it should definitely provide me perhaps 1-2 short-term sell, positions. Okay. Yeah, and the same thing, obviously, on the 10-year, we do see that the sellers were definitely, pushing hard. Perhaps I can even consider buying into my sell position and then take a new sell order. Okay, yeah, I do like what I see on the 10-year. So let's try that. Okay. On the 10-year, this could act as somewhat of a protection point, but let me just cancel my buy position there because I did notice, yeah, you see, so the sellers were getting aggressive, and as soon as they did that, they basically cleared that level, but not necessarily the sellers. From the looks of it, it were the buyers who pulled out. At least that is how it looks to me currently. But and yeah, that 210 level here, right, or 21, we do see that the sellers did test that level, and now the buyers are putting pressure on the sellers. We do see the contracts here also getting smaller. Now, obviously, if this is that potential turning point where that rotation to the upside may happen, I would like to not, step in front of that, right, with that sell position. That's why I basically canceled it, just to see how price reacts when it comes back into that 140 level here at the 30-year, because I already do see indeed a small shift in bid-ask dynamics after that protection point basically prevented, for sellers to pass through that level at 210 or 21. And then basically buyers took over. Yeah. Small absorption going on. Now, these areas are crucial because, yes, we may have that rotation to the upside. But obviously, that can be for 1-2 ticks if the seller here is getting out with, limit orders and or market orders, a hybrid combination perhaps. And as soon as that big player is out, then if the remaining sellers are still, determined to generate that breakout, then because that seller here got out, then there will likely not be the same, amount of pressure on the sellers who are taking market orders to generate that breakout as they did previously. And then it could indeed push through, right? So let's see. Yep. Yeah, I could consider taking a short position if the sellers start to line up here, since, on the 10-year, the sellers basically took back control of this year to price levels. And we do see a smaller attack from the buyers. The only thing that worries me is that price did not really come and trade into that pressure point here, because I already see a little bit of, absorption from the buy side as well. So those are two things that can concern my decision at this point. Okay, one contract. Okay, now all 6 contracts got triggered. Let's see, as long as the sellers can control this year level at 140, right? As long as we can horizontally see a bigger number on the left side in red than a blue number on the right side here. Okay, I do like that. So we do have an, yeah, the sellers are showing initiative. So far, though, the buyers did absorb that. But let's see if the sellers keep attacking. Yeah, and there you go, right? So now they basically pulled out. Okay. The sellers currently are not printing on the 30-year. Right, so the asks got bigger. That is good. On the 10-year, we do see that the buyers are still engaging. Okay, so the sellers again line up and pull out as soon as there is no continuation of that engagement from the buy side. Here we do see that it's still 110 or 110, right? No attack so far, but the sellers also did not print anything here. So let's keep an eye on things here. The buyers are trying to take back control over this year level, which they just did. Okay, yeah, a little bit of absorption from the sellers. And now the price comes back into that pressure point at 220 or 22 on the 10-year. Still a little bit of absorption, and the sellers are probably, deliberately keeping those contracts lower to see if and for how long the buyers engage. And, now obviously that number changed because that's what they do, right? Some people pull, some people stack, and not necessarily people, algorithms. Okay, so the buyers are currently, if we look at it horizontally, in control. We do see the same on the 10-year. However, so far, the sellers are willing to absorb. So let's see. If we can keep that, configuration. Yeah, so again, they basically, pull out a couple of hundred of contracts to make it smaller, right, in comparison with the current bid. But that did not affect anything because no buyers were willing to attack that level. I mean, it's still the same here. Yeah, we do see that the buyers are getting more aggressive. Let's see how these numbers will react though. Okay, one attempt from the sellers to test this level here, 120 or 12. Just what you prefer, I guess. All right. Okay, so absorption. Here we do see that the sellers are starting to engage after a long period of doing basically nothing, right? Okay. This could be done deliberately, obviously, from the buyers. Let's see if the sellers can manage this year level on the 10-year. Okay. So the buyers basically cleared it, but we do see that the sellers are immediately lining up again, which is good. And we do see now on the 30-year somewhat of the same configuration. So yeah, there is some absorption taking place. And notice how the buyers were all that time unable to print anything here, right, on that 140 level, basically, which acts as my protection point. And the same goes on the 10-year. They were unable to print after such an aggressive attack, and even clearing that level, they did not print anything here on that 220 level, on that pressure point, right? So that gives me the confidence to hold on to my position, even though it may look like the sellers are not being the aggressors, which they are not. If we look at it diagonally, the buyers are definitely the aggressors, but that does not mean, that, the price may continue in that sequence, right? Because if there is a seller who is willing to absorb everything what the buyers are basically, trying to move, the size, right? Then, does not mean anything that the buyers are the aggressors. Because if this, person on the sell side can push a bigger size, then, he obviously will absorb and then, go to initiative phase by slowly attacking those bid levels. But let's see though. Now on the 10-year, we already start to see a shift yet again, a flip, right, that the sellers took over control. And now we see that the attack of the buyers is getting weaker in comparison with the previous couple of thousand contracts, right? I also do see some block trades here, right? 7,000 even. So yeah, let's see. Now, obviously, the highlight of the New York session already has passed, right? The first 90 minutes, 9-0, after the New York Open, which we can expect, the most volume. So yeah, it may, for the time being, a little, a bit slow, less volatile in comparison, right? Okay, now I do see that the sellers are starting to push. However, let's see if this one here gets a 1600-ish. If they clear that level here, or sooner, or not, right? But that's what I would like to see, so I can basically determine whether, the buyers are still willing to defend that level, yes or no. Because, 100 additional contracts just cleared that level basically, instead of, 800 contracts. Let me just catch one tick, guys. Because before it breaks out, I can perhaps catch, one tick up, one tick down, one tick up, one tick down, and so forth. Absorption, reloading. Let's hope that triggers my position while this is happening on the 10-year. Interesting though. Yeah, I do see some backticking from the sellers. Absorption even. So that 21 level could act as somewhat of a protection point on the 10-year. But if buyers are starting to test the 21.5 level, right, then I should consider canceling my short entry. But so far it looks good. And let's see if that buying engagement, right, also causes on the 30-year for my position to trigger, which it just did, right? 3 take target, because, you know, that's all I need at this point. I have my first winning tick, which is good. Okay. Do the sellers line up? No, they don't not. Okay, nice. Sellers immediately took over. They are lining up. Okay. We already see that the attack is getting weaker from the buyers in comparison with the previous attack. Yeah, that definitely was another attempt, but look at that, how quickly the sellers are taking over at this year 21 level, at the 10-year. And yeah, there is definitely a willingness, a determination from the buyers though. So as long as, you know, they are not printing actively here, and just, you know, let's see if the sellers will start to line up again after they start to testing this year 21 level. Okay, I do see that the sellers are reducing their contracts to see if the buyers will engage. And obviously that can go one of two ways. Either the buyers are deliberately, you know, not engaging to keep sellers, you know, in play, or vice versa, you know. The sellers are, you know, not testing the buyers after noticing a weak attack. For the time being, they are just defending themselves. And if the buyers notice that, then they may, you know, become the aggressors. So let's keep an eye on things. Okay. Now, what I would like to see is that the sellers are starting to line up here. Yeah, one thing that does worry me is that the buyers are also starting to line up here, right? At the 30-year. So if the sellers at some point are not starting to print and line up, which they just did, luckily, but if that does not happen, obviously, then I should consider exiting at my break even, preferably. Now, I do see that the buyers again took over, but immediate reaction from the sellers. So that gives me the confidence to at least hold a little bit more. Now, we do see an aggressive attack from the sellers on the 10-year at the 21 level with an actual follow through. So, well, not follow through, but they are willing to cross the spread at least and, start to test this year 20 half level. And okay. Let's see if, the price can reach the pressure point over at the 10-year, the 20 level or 200, right? That should allow me to at least profit from one, perhaps 2 ticks, right? Since we somewhat have the same situation here at the 10 or 100 level over at the 30-year. Now, in my humble opinion, the sellers are currently deliberately not attacking, very aggressively at their first attempt, to keep some buyers engaged, right? And why is that? Because if the sellers, then basically they neutralize their own strategy. But if they can keep buyers engaged, right, like that, pulling out, and then as soon as the buyers attack, basically line up again, they will do that obviously a couple of times before initiating that, attack. And the reason for that is, if they can keep all those buyers here engaged, right, they will likely put their, stop orders, somewhere 1-2 ticks below their entries. And, if the seller here has accumulated the desired amount of contracts or inventory, then he will generally start to hit the bid like he's doing now. Exactly my point. And at some point, he will try to scare these buyers, right? So they pull out, so he can basically clear those 2 price levels with little to no effort, basically, by taking market orders. And once he has done that, the move will feed itself to the downside, because those stops here will become market orders of those buyers, right? And then it should rotate very quickly to the downside, at least for a couple of ticks, right? Yeah, the buyers are still definitely engaged, right? So you notice that, guys, while I was explaining, basically the sellers did attack gradually, but every time, in portions or in stages, and at some point they are doing that so that the buyers think, what, let's hit them big, and at some point, yeah, they may clear that level, But then we should see that the sellers are aligning up again. And here you go. They are deliberately again, reducing their contracts, you see. And as soon as the buyers clear that level, yeah, they definitely, line up again or refresh their offers. Okay. We do see the same on the 30-year. And now the sellers basically took over control. Buyers are not printing here. Sellers are absorbing. Okay. Something is telling me that this seller will very soon initiate his, attack, go from absorption mode to initiative mode. But the question is when, right? Because even we did notice a very aggressive attack, there was no real follow through, right? So that should at least tell some buyers here that, their effort to push the price higher and, lift the offer is not, their effort is not getting paid, right? And some buyers may react to that, obviously. Okay, sellers are still engaged, right? So they are absorbing and backticking, at least on the 10-year. Okay, so price is now one tick against me. I mean, even though the buyers are the aggressors currently on both, products, right? We do see absorption. I do not see the sellers engaging on the 30-year, while on the 10-year, there are, definitely sellers who are testing the 21 level. But again, in small sizes, right? And they may do that deliberately to keep those buyers again engaged, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so we do see that the sellers are backticking. On the 30-year, well, neither the buyers or sellers are taking, the initiative to test the current bid-ask levels. Okay, now I did see something happening. And now obviously that seller who is engaging buyers and luring them into, offering contracts, right? He may at some point, if the seller notices that, yeah, there are still buyers, he may pull out his contracts here and accumulate more here for a better price, right? And every now and then he may just test or attack the 21 level by not showing his hand and take market orders while accumulating his positions or inventory faster. Yep, there's still some absorption going on though. Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I miss the action and speed and volatility of the E-mini S&P, right? The ES. However, taking the time, trading treasuries, is also relaxing. We do have a little bit more time, right, to adapt and adjust to our decision-making progress. Sometimes I see something happening and I place, my exit, and then a second later, the dynamics may change in my favor, so I cancel my exit. And like, yeah, the treasury bonds are definitely more, structured and methodical in comparison with the E-mini S&P or ES. But I definitely do love, the E-mini S&P. But right now, I love the treasury bonds more because I'm trading them, right? So no hard feelings, ZB. Right, so as long as the sellers can manage the iceberg order from the buyers, right? I do see a large order sitting now at the 20 level, that pressure point. Okay. Okay. Now that seller may have decided that, okay, now I got the amount of desired contracts, and now he will go from absorption mode into initiative mode, perhaps. So yeah, there is still some absorption going on though. But now it happens again at the 21 level, right? As we can see. And now he's taking market orders after accumulating an additional 2,000 contracts, I believe it was, right? Via limit orders. Now that level got cleared, and the buyers are not even taking, market orders at the 21.5 level here. And the seller keeps, attacking in small portions, nevertheless. Yep, there you go, right? They took control over the 21 level. And now we do see a little bit of absorption at the 30-year going on. And I guess, at this point, I could even consider just going for that one tick. But I am patiently waiting for that follow through of that passive participant on the sell side. But, it may take some time. Obviously, so far it did, right? So yeah, let me just, go for that one tick, unless I do see, something interesting happening on the 10-year. Yeah. I mean, again, at first glance, we may think that buyers are in control, right? But I highly doubt that, and that the seller here just attacked with a small portion to keep those buyers engaged still. Okay. What I would like to see is that the sellers are, defending here at 21.5 while engaging at the 21 level. Let's see if they can take back control eventually over 21. They definitely did on 21.5. And they are also currently the aggressors. Yes, there you go, right? Now let's see if we start to print here as well. Okay, now look, this now eventually can be that move which can drive the price very quick to the downside, but it also may not. That's why we have to keep an eye on things. Yeah, so let's see. Yes. So far, the buyers are not taking contracts here. Sellers are lining up. Okay, now they tested that level at 21.5. Hmm. Okay. Let me just hover my mouse over my one tick profit, just in case if I do see a sudden, aggressive attack of the sellers here, I can right click on it to cancel it, and then hopefully, it will reach this year take profit target. But for the time being, I will just leave it, because even though the sellers are engaging on the 10-year at the 20.5 level, I don't see any engagement on the 30-year at 11. I even do see a tick up, but immediately the sellers again lined up, so that is a good thing. Still no engagement from the sellers on the 30-year at 11. Okay. So now sellers took back control over 21. Let's see if they now also will become the aggressors. Okay, now they are just one contract, but nevertheless. Right, I noticed that the asks at least are getting bigger as soon as the buyers are engaging. So they are not getting smaller, which is nice, which is what I would like to see. And here, yeah, we still have that large order sitting at the 20 level, right, on the 10-year, which now kind of disappeared as soon as the seller started to test that 20.5 level, which could indicate that there is spoofing going on. And now that the price ticked back higher, it flashed back to 7,000-ish. Yeah, you see? Now let's see if the sellers can really push into that, bid level here by taking market orders and clear that level. They could be waiting for the right opportunity. Okay, now they are getting a bit more aggressive though, but not in a way that it affected the buyers. And probably that's the part of their strategy, right? Because we already noticed multiple times since the start of this session that the buyers basically pushed, large amount of contracts, but basically we're never able to even reach that pressure point, right, at 220. So if at some point price tends to break through that volume profile edge here, then it can go very quick, at least, you know, until it reaches that pressure point, and from there it could even, you know, drop faster. So yeah, still some absorption going on. Okay, that's nice. While the 30-year is now testing this year low volume node, we do see again absorption on the 10-year at 21.5, and that low volume node here at 22 basically was not tested at all. So as long as the absorption is taking place without anything printing here, oh yeah, now I should be cautious. Now it reached kind of the pressure point here, so okay. There is still some absorption going on though. Well, guys, I decide to get out with 2 ticks of loss. Yep, there you go. All right, so 2 positions taken, 1 winning position, 1 losing position. Unfortunately, the losing position had 2 ticks, while the winning position had 1 tick, but that's how it is sometimes, right? So basically, I will have to make up for that 1 tick loss though. Um, let's see first how this here reacts, though. Now, since the price has reached that pressure point here, it kind of decayed, right? Okay. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, from the looks of it, I definitely have to pay up a tick at this point, but let's see though. Okay. Definitely some absorption going on the 30-year. Yeah, and I think at this point, I will try to take my position here. We can see that the 10-year is already moving away from, the pressure point or low volume node here. And if that eventually reflects on the 30-year, okay, so on the 10-year, we can definitely see that the buyers are still engaging at the 22 level, right? We see somewhat of a pulling out. Now on the 10-year, the buyers are still unable to pass the 22 price level at that low volume node. On the 10-year, we have that high volume node. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you see that 7,000-ish contract just moved one tick higher. It went from 20 to 20 half, right? And as soon as the sellers start to engage, it tends to pull away now again. So it looks like someone is deliberately spoofing the bids while taking those short orders. Perhaps it's still the same participant, right? Since the very beginning of the entire session, basically, who is still encouraging buyers into luring to providing that passive seller here inventory, right? At which point, obviously, he may pull that out, and by then, these buyers here will realize that too late, and hopefully that is the time when I can, benefit from the strategy of that big player, seller, passive seller, right? So yeah, technically I still could have, been in my short position, but I rather not take the risk because, if that big player here pulled out, then obviously it could have driven the price higher. And from the looks of it, he's still, there at the ask levels, still engaging buyers. Mm-hmm. Let's see if the sellers now also can become the aggressors after taking over control at 21 half. backticking. Okay. All right. Now that number 7,000 here every now and then flashes, probably because he wants to motivate buyers here or even here to front run, right? Either via limit orders and or, market orders, so that the same seller who is advertising that big number here, who is encouraging those buyers to front run, presumably he is there absorbing those buyers before pulling out one, perhaps more price levels here. I mean, kind of looks like the lure trade to me at this point, so okay. Absorption. Where is the back ticking? Okay, there it is. Okay, so as long as the sellers indeed do absorb, and now they are also every now and then taking market orders, while this number is not getting smaller. So that is a nice combination to see. Gives me the confidence to hold on to my position. Although we do see on the 30-year, there is not much going on at the 12 price level from the sellers. Although I do see engagements on the 10-year at 21. Okay. Absorption, and here sellers are still controlling the 13 price level. We do see that the asks are getting smaller, probably to keep buyers engaged so they can absorb at that level. The sellers, basically the same what is happening over here, right? So after a initial almost 5,000 contracts attacking this year level, which also had 5,000-ish advertising here, but obviously that number did not get smaller. So we can conclude that there is definitely someone silently absorbing everything, right? Leaving nothing behind. Oh, just a second, guys. All right. Yeah, that was my daughter, my little princess. She demanded some attention. However, I explained her the situation, and luckily she understood. And I cannot blame her, wanting to have quality time with daddy. Okay, in the meantime, the ask level also got bigger. Yes, there you go. Come on. Keep going. Is that finally that move that I have been waiting on? Like for over an hour? Let's see though. If it can continue. Nothing so far from the buyers here. And we can see that the 7,000-ish became 8,000-ish, but it moved again away from here, one tick lower to that pressure point, right? And now I also see some 7,000-ish here. Well, that did not have the follow through that I kind of would have liked to see. At least not yet. Interesting. Oh. And as we can see in these types of days, when the market is, barely moving, except for, a range of 2, 3 ticks, one has to be very patient. And, just keep observing those, bid and ask dynamics. Watch out for those liquidity gains. And we have again those block trades here. 7,500, 8,000-ish, right? So even though we do see buyers still engaging, I still humbly believe that is the intention of the big player, the passive participant, which in this case is the seller. was encouraging those buyers to keep attacking, right? Right, so now the sellers definitely, showed an effort. We do see a little bit of absorption from the buyers, but so far they are not willing to take market orders, only defend themselves. Right, and immediately that was followed by, okay, one contract here. Right, almost at the pressure point. Let's see how these 8,000-ish contracts will react if the price reaches it. We kind of do see that the sellers are having difficulties to pass the 21 level over at the 10-year. However, that can obviously be, deliberately done from the sell side. Let's see if they can now stay in control over 21. That 8,000 contract still there. Right, so it's getting smaller, but they are taking market orders at the same time to test that level. Let's see. Yep, they're lining up. That's good. Yeah, so what I would like to see is that the sellers are becoming more aggressive at this point, right? And that the buyers will pull out the majority, which then eventually will follow to clearing that price level at 20.5 on the bid. Okay. We do see that the buyers are basically pulling the same thing over at the 30-year at 12. Every now and then reducing. Yes, there you go. Now let's see. Right. Absorption. Absorption. Nothing so far here. Hmm. Okay, so no sellers are lining up so far. But I also don't see buyers printing anything here. Okay, just one contract though. Okay. Probably to see what the reaction of the sellers will be, right? Okay, so the buyers immediately lined up there. I do see a little bit of absorption here, so I should consider at exiting my position at one tick. However, the sellers now cleared that level at 10, right, at ZN. I do see a little bit of absorption. Okay. Sellers are still engaging. 30-year, let's see though. Yeah, I will just try to go for that one tick. Hmm. Now, if I can catch this one tick position, I will end up break even. And, I will then take a little break and continue the trading session later. And re-energize. Take a cup of coffee. Yeah, so the 10-year definitely shows that the sellers are the aggressors currently, which is also reflecting on the 30-year. Let's see though if, make the buyers any attempt on the current ask levels of both, products. If the sellers will start to engage. Ooh la la, 666. Okay, so the sellers are still engaging after a little bit of absorption took place from the sell side when buyers became the aggressors, and eventually, the sellers took back of being the aggressors, right? And basically after absorption, they started to, test the 20 half level like they are doing now. Okay, I do see buyers lining up, so I will not cancel my one tick profit target just yet, and rather take one tick just in case, it again does not follow through. Okay. Yeah, we already kind of see a weakening from the buyers, right? So that one tick should at least be good. Okay. Yeah. Today is very slow. And it is not like there is not any good action. I mean, obviously there is some good action going on, but the majority of the time, I mean, the price is literally within a 1 to 2 tick range currently. Okay, now we have reached the pressure point at 200. Okay. Right, so the buyers immediately took over control over that level. But that was followed by a weak attack, at least so far. And you guys noticed that as soon as the price moved away from 20.5 to 21, that 7,000 became 8,500. So I still do believe that at some point, but we have to see that, right? When sellers are crossing the spread and start to take market orders here, how that bid order will react. But for the time being, I would be happy to, get that 1 tick scalp so I can get out at break even. And then I will come back later, re-energized after some coffee, like I mentioned, right? And basically reassess. Hopefully by then, we have a bit more better, price action going on. Okay. So aggressive attack, weak attack, sellers engage. Let's see. Buyers are still. Okay, so they added contracts when price was ticking here. And as soon as it backticked, right? Okay. We do see that the buyers are getting a little bit more aggressive. However, there is still absorption going on at the 13 level from the 30-year. Right, so let's see indeed what will happen now when and if the sellers start to engage here. Now you see that flashing of a couple of hundred, almost 1,000 contracts every time the price ticks higher and back, right? Right, so at this point, I'm back at break even, right? So far, basically took just 3 positions, one losing position, 2 winning position, although that one losing position did cost me 2 ticks, right? So with those 2 winning positions, I'm back at break even. And this may be actually, well, let me see. I mean, I was planning on taking a short break, but if I can, benefit from that move that I was basically waiting for since the beginning of the session, like, 1.5 hour earlier, then yeah, when the price tends to move very quickly through these levels, and before it does that, let's see if it will trigger my short, or if I have to consider in paying up. Right, so definitely got triggered. Let's see. Yeah, so basically now this 12 level on the 30-year could act as my protection point, right? I do see a bit buying activity though. You see? Okay. Now, I would like to see the sellers engage here after they clear that 12 level here. Interesting. So on the 10-year, this step in the volume profile is cleared. And this step is not cleared yet, right? And we do see that the sellers are engaging pretty aggressively, but so far, I do see a little bit of absorption from the buyers. Okay, so here the bid just got bigger. However, the sellers are pulling out to see if the buyers will, engage. So now I can see that the sellers basically took control over 12, while on the 10-year there is some absorption taking place on the sell side, and the sellers are the aggressors as well. However, I don't see any aggression so far reflecting in the 30-year. So far on the 30-year, there is no attack from the buyers at 12. I still do see 18 contracts. However, on the 10-year, yeah, they are somehow engaged a bit more actively. Okay, so that was potentially an iceberg order on the buy side, but I see that order of 8,000, it moved as soon as one contract was printed, one tick lower. So this should definitely indicate somewhat, and that there is at least some spoofing going on. Now we do see that the 10-year is a bit more lively than the 30-year. It moves 1, 2, sometimes even 3 ticks, while the 30-year is still, okay. Wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah, so basically that 8,000, 8,500-ish contract and dropped one price lower. And now it went back and it dropped again. All right, so okay, interesting. Okay. We do see a little bit of absorption on the 30-year at 12. Okay, now let's see who's willing to cross the spread. All right, it's the sellers. Yeah, there pops that 8,000-ish contract again on the 10-year at 19.5. That is followed by a pretty aggressive attack, yet again from the buy side. But we do see some absorption taking place, so that's good. And the same thing is happening on the 30-year at the 12 price level. The 10-year shows that there is still some activity from the sell side. So absorption followed by backticking. And the 30-year shows so far only absorption. Okay. Yeah, so Sellers are not pulling out after a pretty aggressive attack from the buyers, and they even keep engaging, at the 20 level on the 10-year. So that gave me the confidence to, hold on to my position, even though the buyers eventually lined up here. But now the sellers are back at that level, taking control. Let's see if the same thing can happen also here at the 10-year, currently at this 20 level, right? So after basically the buyers attacked, it became less aggressive. Sellers took back control. No resistance from the buyers. So we are again 1-2 ticks lower on the 10-year. However, the 30-year is still at the 12 price level. Okay, so we again have a little shift in dynamics here, looking at the inside print. Okay, absorption. Sellers are lining up, deliberately pulling, and then stacking. I see that 8,000-ish contract here moved again to the 19 level. $6,500-ish, 2,000-ish. Although these numbers obviously are, changing, jumping up and down. This here does not. And while these may change, it does not mean per se anything without looking at the combination, right? If this one changes, how this will react. Or if sellers start to engage here, how this one will react then. So changing the ask on its own without, any market orders taken, does not mean much on its own, right? It has to be a combination so we can indeed determine, because as long as buyers don't engage, it means nothing, right? That these numbers reduce, pull, stack, however you want to call it. Right, so I finally made that one additional tick of profit back. Okay, so 3 winning positions, 1 losing position so far. Let's see how that has reflected here. Yeah, let's see, because I also got out at break even, I believe, one time or not, but that would have cost me as well. So basically, I still would have to make 4 ticks at this point of profit, I believe. So yeah, what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to take that well-deserved break, right? Otherwise, I'm not getting away behind the monitor or computer screen. So what I will do is I will, end the recording. It is currently 7:22 p.m., right? And I am currently $187.50 in profit. Taken 4 positions, 3 winning positions of each 1 tick and 1 losing position of 2 ticks. That's basically the summary so far. And today we can definitely notice that it is a slow day. But yeah, let's have a look later on when I'm back to see if things have changed, the conditions, the behavior of the market, the dynamics, and if I can, have those additional profitable scalps or not. But we will see then. So I'll catch you guys in the second part sometime later. All right, so we are back with part 2, and it is currently 7:53 p.m. So took a break about 30 minutes or so, had some coffee, and more importantly, spent some quality time with my daughter, my little princess, before she went off to bed and go to sleep. And from the looks of it, the price didn't move anywhere. So not a lot have happened from the looks of it, but okay, so we did have a breakout out of the volume profile. We do see that the sellers were definitely dominating these 2 price levels at 10 and 11. And we do see that on the 10-year, we kind of cleared the pressure point and currently are engaging at the 19 level. Right, so we still do see that the sellers are engaging at the 10-year, testing the 19 level where price is currently at. Not much happening at this point, really. Let's see, though, what the buyers will do at the 19.5 level on the right over at the 10-year. If they will eventually take back control of that level or not, and how the sellers will react to that if they start to aggressively attack. Okay, so they did not. Let's see, though. Okay. Ah, that's too bad. And actually, I was considering to take a buy position here at the 80 level. But the one thing that made me consider, taking a buy limit order was because this here pressure point over at the 10-year right? Price could have easily crossed it. And with that, also this here high volume node. So that kind of made me second guess my decision. And by that time, obviously, it was too late. However, when the price came to an immediate halt, I basically reacted, but evidently too slow, right, to catch that short position, which I initially missed. Yeah, so let me just, cancel that order. So let's just reassess and look at things. So far, I do not see the buyers making an attempt to test the level here at 11. Let's see though if the sellers eventually take enough market orders to take back control over that level and eventually perhaps still push it down to, this here low volume node or a pressure node, pressure point, right? Okay. I do see that the buyers are becoming a little bit more aggressive though. Okay. That was absorbed. Buyers are still engaging though. Right, so they just cleared that level. So far, I don't see, the sellers lining up, neither the buyers testing the 20 level at the 10 year. So Okay. I did notice at some point that, the sellers were becoming the aggressors after a little absorption took place. However, now they are just defending themselves. All right, so I do see that the buyers are lining up though. Okay. Now the sellers clear that level, which is good. Okay, they keep clearing it. They also lining up here. Yeah, so a little bit of absorption. Sellers still in control of the 20 level at the 10-year. Okay, we do see some backticking. Buyers are engaging absorption. Sellers deliberately reducing their contracts at the ask to see if the buyers will engage at the 30-year. So far, no engagement here, but on the 10-year, I can definitely see that they are still at it. Excuse me. I also see the asks are getting bigger, which is what I would like to see. Okay, now they are engaging the 19.5 level. Let's see, okay. 6,000-ish. Right. So they clear that level, which is nice. Now, previously the price made a rotation to the upside when it reached that, level here at the 30-year. Although we do have somewhat, to go on the 10-year to that pressure point. But let's just see. Let me just go for one tick, guys. Because while I was taking my break and was enjoying my coffee, it occurred to me that I basically missed a couple of one-tick scalps, right? Profitable trades because I was, aiming 3-4 ticks a couple of times, and while I could have gotten one tick here, one tick there, but progress, not perfection, right? And during these conditions, I guess going just for a one tick is a more logical approach instead of going for two, even 3 ticks. I mean, that would have been perhaps fine during the 90 minutes of the New York Open, right? When there was basically actual volume in the market. But let's see, the 10-year is showing, yes, that the buyers were very weak, the sellers were in control, and that the sellers are currently the aggressors. Let's have a look though how these bids react to those attacks of the sellers, and how these sellers obviously will react to those buyers whenever they test at 20. Okay, buyers are probably deliberately reducing their bids to see if the sellers will engage, and they did. They even cleared that level, but there was no actual follow-through of that aggressiveness as of yet. Okay, so that is another profitable trade, or one tick scalp. Okay, let's get in queue for another sell position at the 30-year. I do see a weak attack. Sellers were previously in control. Buyers put some effort here, although there was no follow-through of that previous effort or engagement, right? All I have to do is keep an eye on this and see if it gets bigger than this year on the left, 1421. And if so, how the sellers, react on the ask level. Okay. Okay, so we do see that the sellers are pulling out some orders on the ask level. However, the buyers are so far not engaging, and suddenly those asks got bigger. And here they are about to clear the bid, but we also see that after a pretty aggressive attack, the buyer is absorbed, so 308, 5,000, 1,200, 2,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. I do see a little bit of absorption as well on the 30-year at 10. Right, the sellers are starting to push on the 10-year. They're definitely in control over this year price level. They took market orders. They were the aggressors. So far, no backticking from the buyers. The ask level tends to hold fast. And the bid level, well, okay. Definitely some sellers there. There you go. They lined up again. Only 2 contracts printed on the 11 price level at the 30-year. So no real follow through of that previous attack. 868 contracts and almost, well, 5,000, well, 4,500, right? On the 10-year. So let's see how the buyers will react to that. So far, the sellers are just defending themselves, probably absorbing before testing the 9 level. We already saw that happen on the 10-year, right? That absorption took place, and now they are testing here 19.5 level at the 10-year. Right, so they again start to line up here as soon as, you know, they cleared that level. The buyers were not engaging, but now they are definitely engaging. So however, on the 10-year and 30-year, there's no real follow through. The offers tends to hold. Let's see if they will line up here eventually. Here they are deliberately reducing. And when the buyers did not test that level, they added a couple of 100 contracts to see how the bids level will react to that. Now, from some point, one can even consider that the buyers are now absorbing as well, right? However, I don't see them engage so far. So yes, they may absorb, but the sellers are absorbing and backticking, right? So they should have the upper hand against the buyers, at least in the current position, moment in time. Okay, I do see buyers lining up here. However, the sellers are still maintaining control so far. I don't see anything printing here or here. So for the time being, they are just waiting for the buyers to engage. That's why they are probably deliberately reducing their limit orders. And now we had an attack on the 10-year from the sellers, right? That's why these also jumped immediately higher. While the sellers were, you know, attacking, they cleared that level. And so far, we do see small to no resistance from the buyers after clearing that level. However, the sellers are not, continuing that aggressiveness. Yeah, so now I just notice one contract. Here at 20, the sellers are still in control. Interesting. Now we do see that the buyers are reducing their bids at the 10 level on the 30-year to see if, sellers will start to engage. And they just did. On the 10-year, they cleared the 20 level, and now the 10 also on the 30-year. And now the sellers are deliberately reducing their contracts to see if there are still buyers willing to engage after that, sequence that the sellers basically pulled off. Okay, so horizontally, the sellers, horizontally, the sellers, horizontally, the sellers. I'd also like to see that happen here. Yeah, okay. Uh-huh. Let's see. Yeah, I think I will just go for one tick, guys, because I already start to see a big offer showing up at the 20 level. So it could be very well that someone is now accumulating on the buy side while encouraging sellers to front run. So when he then pulls out this year order, then the price could very well, rotate very quickly, a few ticks to the upside until, it gets there. It could be, from here, 1-2 ticks. But yeah, let's just see. If in the meantime, the sellers tend to take over control of that level, then I could always consider to target again 2 ticks, but like I said, as I was, enjoying my coffee, I was just rethinking the whole thing and basically missed out 2, perhaps even 3, 1 tick, positions like that, because I was indeed aiming 2, 3, sometimes even 4 ticks. But these are the Treasury bonds, so totally different in comparison with the E-mini S&P. I mean, the ES is a totally different animal. But, Treasury bonds are definitely more forgiving because they are obviously, slower and more structural and methodical, right? So far, I don't see any attack or even a test from the sellers at the 9 level. Okay, the buyers are starting to pull out some bids at the 9 level over at the 30 years, so perhaps that will encourage sellers to hit the bid. But so far, I don't see anything going on. Let's see though. Okay, so the bids are also getting bigger at this point. Right. Let's see if the sellers will keep engage the buyers. Okay, the buyers are definitely reacting to that attack, right? They pulled out. However, they are also stacking. I should be very cautious at this point. Okay, luckily for me, the price indeed did tick down, which delivered me another profitable trade. And at this point, I do believe I would still need 2 ticks of profit to reach my daily target. So let's just keep going on. Well, perhaps not the most ideal area, but if the sellers were able to push the price through this here pressure point, and the buyers will attack, but won't be able to cross that pressure point, then yeah, it could trigger my position like they are doing now, right? Because we do approach the pressure point on the 10-year. Yeah, I think I was a bit too late for that. Sellers are currently still not printing though. Interesting. Whoa, okay. Okay. Right. Okay, so now the price is trading at this here pressure point. However, the attack of the sellers is decreasing. I do see somewhat of a takeover of the price level here. I do see a little bit of absorption. No prints at this here high volume node. And the 10-year also shows that the buyers just took over control of the 18.5 price level where price is currently trading. Okay. Really considering taking a buy market order. That's why my mouse is hovering. I am a little bit cautious though, because the sellers are still engaging at the pressure point over at the 10-year. While yes, the buyers may take over control of the 18.5 price level. I do see 17.5 and 17 is suddenly showing some block trades. So I am cautious, right? Because price may as well pass the pressure point and go lower. And, you know, if that's the case indeed, then a buy position at this point should not be considered as the, you know, wisest decision. But that's why I'm keeping an eye on things, right? To basically, you know, analyze the real-time interaction between those passive and aggressive participants. And if the conditions are right, to then make that decision to basically buy into my missed short position at 9 over at the 30-year. So yeah, we still do see the sellers engaging at the 18 price level, right? So Still, still patiently waiting. And as soon as the buyers start to line up at the 8 price level on the 30-year, while looking at the configuration on the 10-year, it could be a potential, opportunity for a quick scalp to buy. Now, the only thing that worries me a little bit and, basically prevents me from taking a buy market order is those, block trades at the 10-year, right? Which can deliberately be placed by sellers to induce, or lure buyers currently before pulling out those, dummy orders or spoof orders at 175 and 170 over at the 10-year and, pushing the price lower. But somehow the buyers are pretty, doing a good job in okay. Yeah, you see those block trades over at the 10-year at 17.5 and 17. Okay. Yeah, so I basically just took a market order. With the intention, to basically scalp into that missed sell position here at the 90 level. Okay, I do like this. Let's see if the buyers can take control over this year 19 level. Okay. We do see that the buyers are engaging at the 10-year. I do see a little bit of absorption though from the sellers. Again, over at the 10-year. And now we also see like almost 12,000 contracts appearing on the bid at 18 on the 10-year. Okay, the buyers are still engaging the 19 level again at the 10-year. Okay, one contract filled for my exit, although the other 5 not so much. Okay, 3 to go. One. Yes. All right, I do believe I am still required to... Yeah, so basically I have to make around $60, you know, plus 30. Let me quickly put my calculator in front of me. So it's basically 31.25 minus $5 commission per round turn per contract. So that's 26.25. Now let's say I take 3 contracts. That's about 78 per tick. Yeah, that should do it. So all I have to do is basically take 1 position with 3 contracts and target 1 tick. So let me go here. Make this 3 contracts. Now, hopefully I will, you know, get in and out of my position before the power hour when things may change. Okay. Yeah, so we definitely had, you know, that shift in dynamics here after that pressure point was reached. And we already start to see the order book thickening, right? Now, you guys may have noticed that I am also talking, less than in comparison with the beginning of the session, but that's just because all that talking, man, my throat is hurting. I already have a bottle of water here besides me, so I'm not used, I guess, to talk that much, that long. Immediately, I am queuing for just one tick. All right, I do see the sellers are absorbing indeed. They are also taking market orders gradually. I do see that the 10-year is already ticking down. And they just became the aggressors, right? So let's see if they can keep that. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's nice. They took back control and now becoming the aggressors. Let's see if they are willing to cross the spread and take over control at 19.5. Okay. They're definitely attacking, but so far they have not taken over control. Okay, I do see that the buyers are also reloading here. And the 30-year definitely shows that sellers are in control and they are somewhat absorbing while reducing their asks, right? To see how the buyers react to that. Okay. 10 versus 6-ish. 10, 6. Right. There you go. Ooh, that was a big block from this buy side. So the sellers cleared that level and immediately they attacked. But even though there was a hidden order here on the buy side, look, they were not able to follow through as of yet. And that's why immediately the sellers now are reacting to that, right? So if that hidden order has absorbed and printed market orders, but without any real follow through, while sellers taking back control immediately and also lining up again. And now they deliberately, were reducing and pulling out their contracts to keep those buyers engaged, right? And now they are lining up again. Let's see though. If the sellers also can clear this year level at the 30-year, because I can see that they are still in control over the price of 11 and now also took back control over 10, even though the buyers are showing effort without any follow through so far. So let's see, the sellers are indeed printing, although these orders are not getting bigger. And now they just did, right? As soon as I mentioned it, but they are not, testing the 11 price level. So while we do see somewhat printing here over at the 10-year, wow, right. So far, they are not willing to take market orders. That's why the sellers are, reducing the ask to see if that will encourage buyers to test that 11 price level here at the 30-year. And when they didn't, they basically took a couple of market orders to see how the buyers will react. Now on the 10-year, the sellers did clear the 19.5 level and were testing this year price level. Now on the 30-year, the sellers also cleared the 10 price level and currently are absorbing. So if that buyer or buyers eventually will puke out at break even or perhaps even with a tick loss, as long as the sellers keep engaging, right, then it should deliver me that one tick for 3 contracts and I should be done for the day. However, let's keep an eye on things. Right, reducing deliberately. Small engagement from the buyers. Are they going to backtick? The sellers, are they going to test the 19 price level? They just did. Right, and let's see if, the buyers will pull out or at least how they will react. Well, they are still determined to take market orders, but the sellers did absorb that. And now again, backtick to the downside. We do see somewhat similar here that the buyers are indeed still engaging, right? That's why the sellers are deliberately reducing their ask levels here. They are still in control though over that price level at 30-year. So far, they are not printing, only defending. Okay, and there you go, right? So, and that should conclude my trading session for today. There you go, right? So another profitable day, but man, it took some time to get there, right? So, yeah, so basically I have one losing position and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 winning position. So 5 winning ticks, although, that one losing position did cost me 2 ticks. So it took obviously quite a bit longer to reach that daily profit target. But nevertheless, we are here, as we can see, right? June 4th, and my net PNL reached $618. A winning rate of 88%, which is nice. Yes, suddenly the order book became a bit more lively, but that's probably because we are about to enter the New York Power Hour, as I mentioned earlier. And also, let me pull up my Take Profit Trader portal to see if those results are indeed visible. Yes, here we go, right? So, yeah, there you can see my loss point, but eventually I made up for it. Win rate about 89%, which is very nice. But more importantly, I have now 1, 2, 3, and 4 profitable days in a row. I'm definitely happy with the results, and currently up 2.5K. Well, to be exact, 2,475. So, and obviously this year trade summary, right, is also adjusted. Now these are again the positions that I basically took, right, since the beginning of the day. Where is it? July 4th here, all the way up to here, right? And yeah, definitely happy so far with the results. And let me also get this here. Now, this is again the gross P&L, right? So minus the commissions, everything, I basically hit my daily net profit target. And I will leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. And I will, see you tomorrow during the fifth and last, hopefully, last trading day. If it does not result in, a losing day. As long as I can, manage my losses to a minimum, evidently, like I did yesterday and today, I can make up for it definitely, and, still end up in the green and having a profitable day. But yeah, that's it, guys. I will catch you tomorrow. Until then, stay blessed. I will see you guys in the next video.